Hi everyone, welcome to FilmDirt. I've just seen Top Gun Maverick and I'm ready to give my thoughts on what I just saw. Now I usually go and see new movies with one of my sons or my wife, depending on what the film is. I saw this one with a good friend of mine. We're similar ages, so we both remember the original Top Gun very well, and we were able to deliberate afterwards on a reasonably equal level. We've both got the same 80s sensibilities and, for the most part, story sensibilities. Now, we both thought that the film was excellent, very, very good. Not outstandingly good, but excellent. Now, what I thought initially was that it focuses a lot on nostalgia. And for me, it just seemed like we were concentrating on the 80s and what the original movie established. And the other film that I can think of that also did this, that reminded me a lot of Maverick, was Ghostbusters Afterlife. That film as well, it just made too many references to little bits you remember from the previous movie. Now, with Top Gun Maverick, for me, it just seemed like a collection of scenes really just bundled together. Like, for example, the beach volleyball, that didn't need to be there, but we need to see it because it's a major part of the original movie. In not story wise, but it's one scene that we always referred to that really established that movie for what it was. You know, when you think of oiled up young people playing volleyball, you automatically think of Top Gun, you know, with the orange haze. And we get that again here. And that's great, but it's just tagged in, and near 60-year-old Tom Cruise looks amazing that he has to take part in the scene as well. Of course he does, because he looks great. He looks great. And in amongst the younger actors, that, you know, it was great. But it was just there for just being their sake. Okay, now I've got to touch on the intro, which I thought was outstanding. The mirrors to the original movie, you know, where you get the danger zone music, and you get the images of the fighter jets milling around the carrier, whether taking off or arriving on deck. And the photography looks incredible. It's just a show reel. It's a cinematography show reel, and the music along with that, outstanding. Now I don't think they remixed the music, although it's been rearranged. They seem to use the same music as the original. They could have remixed it maybe, but it's good to hear it again. I've got to also mention the cinematography choices that were made within the cockpits of the jets. Now, for me, it just looks a little bit too much like a camera being mounted into a cockpit. I think we see a little bit too much of the outside world. And when you're spaced away from the pilot's face, I think you're almost taking out the drama of the story. And it kind of looked like a little bit Discovery Channel for me. Now, I understand that they did all of the flying scenes for real. They're all in the back seat of a two-seater jet, I remember reading. Maybe it was all for real and some digital manipulation, maybe. But I think we see a little bit too much behind them and the outside world, which they took advantage of. I understand they wanted to do that to show that they were flying for real, and I just think Tony Scott filmed it very close up to the actor's face, and that gives you the drama of the moment. I know you don't see half of their face, you only see their eyes and you hear the dialogue, but when you're right in there, I think there's a lot of emotion that the actor can can portray. I don't think we quite got those moments in Maverick, although we do cut into actors' faces really close up at certain points. We're just seeing a camera mounted in a cockpit, and it kind of took me out of the moment in some ways. I don't want to know there's a camera in a cockpit. I want maybe the camera to be looser and to be right into the actor's face, and then we can maybe pan out to see some of the twists and turns maybe, but the focus, most of the focus should be on the actor's face in the cockpit, because that's where the drama is. You know, there's a lot of movies now where it looks like intentionally there's a GoPro mounted on the outside, even when the scene is CGI. I give you certain World War II reenactment movies, and maybe some of the more recent Disney Star Wars movies where they're trying to make it look like there's a camera mounted on this jet plane, and you're seeing, you know, the sequence as if it were filmed for real. And that's what I've got here. It just seemed a little bit too much of reenactment. I didn't want the camera mounted inside the cockpit, although I understand what it is. It's an IMAX camera with several lenses, I think. That has to be put somewhere, and I know the camera's huge, but I just wanted it filmed like Tony Scott would film it, and he wouldn't have done it like this. He would have gone right into the actor's face, and we would have seen that drama. I think that this was a stylistic choice that I think is a negative for the movie. Although a small one, it did take me out of the scene, and I didn't want that. I know it's a nitpick, and I hate nitpicking good movies. I would have done this differently. Now, another thing I wanted to cover was, I think the other pilots were just a little bit too young, and they look like, I don't want to be unkind, but drama school graduates, where they just all look a bit samey and faceless, and I don't know, can you really remember what the call sign of each of those were? I mean, I know maybe one, maybe two, and the female pilot, she's great. But other than that, they're just a little bit samey. Now, if the story is looking at maybe one major mission, and they're recalling the best pilots to Top Gun to train to do this very difficult mission, I just think they should have been a little bit older. And I'm thinking, maybe John Hamm himself could have been one of the pilots. Maybe not the age of Tom Cruise, he could still be the older instructor, but we could have a younger generation, maybe one generation down, and still have that drama. And I think we would have remembered the characters a bit more. They would have not been so faceless. And I think John Hamm, he would have been fantastic as himself, you know, at his current age, as one of the pilots. And we could have almost had like a Dirty Dozen, like one final mission. And there was another senior ranking officer, I think his name's Warlock, they said at the end. He could have been one as well, because he had a very characterful face. And I just think there's something to be said for the age of an actor. We could have had a story where this mission is so difficult that we're recalling the best fighter pilots that don't need as much training, maybe. These guys already know the F-18 Hornet like the backs of their hands, because it's not a new aircraft. I believe it's a 4th generation. So these slightly older pilots would have known the capabilities of the Hornet. And maybe if they were told not to use the F-35 stealth jet, maybe the filmmakers didn't have permission to use it. I don't know what the reasons were. That's the reason we could have used slightly older pilots, and thus slightly older actors. I just think it would have been a better story that way. And yeah, have like a Dirty Dozen where we've got 4 or 6 pilots of an age flying this mission, and it would have brought much more emphasis on character than what we got in the movie. I just think they're all a little bit samey, although good actors, all of them, I'm sure, and there's something to be said for an unknown actor in a significant role, because you believe them more. But in this case, I just think they're just instantly forgettable. But although they played their parts well, I just think they were not right for the character. Maybe casting should have intentionally made the other pilots older. Another thing I made a mental note of that I wanted to talk about was it's not really Top Gun, it's Top Bomber. This is a bombing mission. This is not so much a dogfighting movie that gives you the name Top Gun as in like a shootout. That's what the word means to me. It's almost high noon against an equal opponent. What we're doing here is it's like Star Wars, the original Star Wars, where you're having to skim the trench below radar as low as you can, and you have to watch the guns shooting at you, and then you have to get a missile into a tiny crater-like bunker or whatever that is at the end there, reactor shaft. It might as well be just like Star Wars. I like the idea that they had to fly as low as possible to evade radar. I'd have liked to have seen them maybe being discovered early and having to abandon that part of the mission and then enter into a dogfight with the Russian jets, whatever and enter into a good old-fashioned dogfight like the end of the original movie. I mean, there's a lot of references. We're looking into pilotless drone-type warfare. I don't think we're quite there yet. We didn't need to mention that so much. I think it was mentioned, I may be wrong, maybe 2 times, maybe. And because we're not there yet, I'd like to have seen us enter into a good old-fashioned dogfight where you get a pilot versus a pilot, both highly trained in maybe overpowered opponents. Because I think the Russian jets, I forget the name, they're stealth fighters 5th generation against the older Hornet jets. I think that could have represented good odds and increased the drama. I just think that's another opportunity lost there. I think the bombing mission just wasn't exciting enough, and it wasn't reminiscent of the name Top Gun. I just think we were better suited to having a good old dogfight with some opposing MiGs or something, or 5th generation MiGs, and really have a callback to the original movie since we don't establish what this opponent is. So we can have MiGs if we're having a make-believe evil nation, which kind of could be Iran because I believe they're the only ones that are still flying the F-14 Tomcats. I just think you could have really bent the rules of fact and fiction. I think we've already had a make-believe jet at the start of the movie that Tom Cruise takes into Mach 10. We could have really invented an advanced MiG something or other just to give you those callbacks to the original movie. I just think it would have been more exciting that way, having another of those highway to the danger zone moments. What else have I got to talk about? Oh yes, the Lady Gaga song. I don't think it fits. I think having a ballad, which is very beautiful, it's a great tune. I just think it's out of place here. And at the end of the movie, I think it could have ended with some maybe rock music. I think that's what the whole film was establishing, maybe. Although the first movie did that more, we get a lot more emotion this time. I just think we deserved a bit of rock music to close the movie out. I love Lady Gaga. I love what she's done with her career, and I love her music. I just think it didn't fit. Other than that, I love this movie. It's still great. Honestly, I love the callbacks to the 80s. I wanted to really like this movie a lot more than I did. I think there was a few choices here that I alluded to earlier that I wouldn't have taken. I think it could have been so much better, and it's almost a less is more. I just think we already had the tools here to make a much simpler story, and it would have meant so much more. Anyway, that's what I thought, and what do I know? I'm just a child of the 80s. That's what I wanted to happen here. So, marks out of 5. It's a 4-star movie. It's still good. I loved it. I want to see more films like this from Tom Cruise, and I'm hoping they do another one. Let's just say fingers crossed. I'd love to see another one. So thank you for joining me for this review. Let me know in the comments below what you think, whether you agree with my views. And just to leave you with a little bit about myself, I didn't get a free ticket to watch this movie, unlike a lot of the shills that do get tickets from the studios and do sometimes give fake reviews. We've seen that a lot of times in the past, and that does happen, guys, believe me. I don't get involved in all of that. All of my reviews are completely my own and genuine. Thanks again. It was great talking to you and reminiscing about a good 80s classic. Speak to you again. Take care.